Hello BookTube, November is upon us, and because I am new to BookTube, I was quite happy to realize that there is an initiative in November called Nonfiction November, because that's right up my alley. I prefer to read nonfiction, um, so I believe the keywords for the prompts this month are time, discovery, buzz, and movement, and I'm going to take those in the very loose sense in order to fit with what I intend to read. So this month, there is one book that I definitely have to read for Archaeology Book Club, and that is called Gods of the Upper Air by Charles King. So technically I could fit this into the time, discovery, and movement prompts. So essentially what this book is about is Franz Boas, who is the father of modern cultural anthropology and therefore archaeology in the States, how he influenced all of his students in the new themes for the day. So essentially when he was a researcher, the ideas of the time were that race was biologically determined. However, what he was and then things that, all of the negative racist ideas that come out of that. So intelligence, fitness, things like that, how those come out of these racial categories. So Franz Boas essentially was like, no, that's all fiction. So he's basically spurred a movement and an age of discovery in the early 20th century for students, the movers and shakers within the field. Margaret Mead, Ruth Benedict. So Margaret Mead, she worked with Samoans. One of her works is called Coming of Age in Samoa, her cultural anthropological work. And then even influenced Zora Neale Hurston, whose studies under Boas fed directly into the classic novels Their Eyes Were Watching God. So essentially just, here, this explains it better than I ever will. So their revolutionary findings would go on to inspire the fluid conceptions of identity that we know today. So there you go. Time, early 20th century. Movement, breaking down racial barriers in the academic field of cultural anthropology, and discovery. So his work spurred on his students to go forth into far away places and bring us the knowledge that we know about different cultures. So there you go. That's the one that I definitely have to read this month. In terms of supplementing that read, there's this one here, which I found in a secondhand bookstore in Crete about 5 years ago, and I believe it's a Folio Society book, but it is called A Short History of Time. And I remember flipping through this thinking it's absolutely delightful because it is just a history about time and how it was perceived in the past. Calendars, months, seasons, what it was, how time was perceived possibly in prehistory. So I am looking forward to actually flipping through this month. So that fulfills time, possibly discovery. We'll find out. One book that I have been sort of chugging along with is Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. I find myself drawn to quite a few other books as time goes by, but I'm always coming back to this one. I'm terrible with reading books at the same time. I can never just devote my attention to one thing at one moment. But I might come back to this fully for November, and I think it might fulfill the category of buzz. As I understand this, this book was forbidden from reading in certain school districts in the States just because of how controversial it was. Have I even told you what this book is yet? It's called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by D. Brown. Apologies. But yeah, essentially, I'm up to the point where Little Crow encourages the Sioux to massacre the Minnesotans, and it's, I guess, sort of coincidental that I'm at that point because I just finished a book called Rise to Greatness, in which Lincoln, they reference that massacre in 1862 when Lincoln basically told the governor of Minnesota, you're not hanging 300 Sioux Indians without me having a look and seeing who's guilty and who's not. So I thought, what a great time to actually come back to this point in the book, so I can, sort of delve in from that point in the book that I just read. So this I'll be reading again for November, or reading further for November. And I am really interested in medieval history, specifically the Plantagenet kings and queens of England. And one of the books that I would like to read this month, however, we'll see how far I get with the others, is called A Great and Terrible King by Mark Morris. And this is about Edward I, or you might be more familiar with him as Edward the Longshanks, the Hammer of Scotland. And to be honest, I haven't really been too interested in reading about him. Not that I'm not interested, but there's just so many other kings and queens and other, nobles that I wanted to learn more about during this period. But I recently finished a book called Song of Simon de Montfort, and I'll include in the description the author for that. But one of the reasons why I want to start reading this is because she sort of alludes to a more impressionable King Edward I than what we're sort of used to knowing. So when you see in movies like Braveheart, or you read in other resources, he's absolutely so self-assured, very, I guess, cruel, very efficient, absolutely believed in his, anointedness. Anointedness, I don't even know if that's a word, but essentially he believed in his place as the King of England, because God chose him, essentially. So I'm looking forward to reading this, particularly the first couple of chapters about his younger years, just so I can see, was he a bit more impressionable when he was younger? What sort of follies and mistakes did he make? So looking forward to that. And then perhaps I might read this, perhaps not. This is by Carl Sagan, called The Dragons of Eden. And as a kid, I used to love watching Cosmos with my parents. And I just think that Carl Sagan, he's such a wonderful orator and a communicator of science. He's the precursor of Brian Cox and I can't believe I can't remember his name. Anyways, but he's the original science communicator of the 20th century. And when I read through this, I'm gonna sort of read it in his voice and sort of be relaxed by his soothing baritone voice. But essentially this is the description. So Dr. Carl Sagan takes us on a great reading adventure, offering his vivid and startling insight into the brain of man and beast. So the origin of human intelligence, function of our most haunting legends, and their amazing links to recent discoveries. So when was this written? This was written in, or published, I should say, 1977. So a lot of discoveries have, come forth since. So it would sort of be interesting to see, as sort of a historical experiment, what the discoveries and widely understood ideas were in the late 70s regarding this topic. So I'll have a read through of it for that. And this wasn't exactly very bright. However, two of the other books that I wanted to mention in this video are currently propping up my phone, so I can't show them to you. But one of the trilogies that I've been enjoying is by C.B. Wedgwood, And I actually read the last book first, and it's called A Coffin for King Charles. And I read this book as a recommendation from one of Steve Donahue's videos from a couple of years back, and I really enjoyed it. Again, she's a historian who wrote in the earlier 20th century, and I'm not a historian at all. I don't know about the different movements and theories within, historical studies. But I sort of would like to revisit these novels with the understanding of the differences between how we sort of view the time period now versus what historians said at that period. So essentially, this trilogy that I'm talking about, it takes us through the English Civil War and focuses on King Charles. So from the background from before the war began to his execution. So absolutely won't be reading all of those in November, no chance. But I think I would like to start the first book, just to get a glimpse of it and sort of maybe reorient my TBRs for the rest of the year and next year, so I can fit these in. So don't even think I told you what the buzzwords were for those last few books. Apologies. Let's go with time and discovery for those last few. But yeah, essentially that was my very disorganized, very erratic TBR for Nonfiction November, and I hope you enjoyed that. So have a good day, everyone. Thank you. Bye.